So DJI just released their brand new hybrid self-tracking AI drone called the Flip, which has quite impressive video and photo quality and can be flown in 4 different ways even without a controller, just by using the onboard flight modes similar to the DJI and Neo. But if you're looking for a brand new drone, maybe this is the first drone you're gonna buy, which drone should you buy? In today's video, I will be focusing on the DJI and Neo, the Flip and the Mini 4 Pro, which all sits in the category of beginner drones, each with their own unique features. So we'll be comparing the image quality both in daylight and low light. We also will be comparing features, ease of use, and the pros and cons with each of these drones. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a better idea of which drone is better for you and for your needs. It's not said that the best is the best for you, so we're gonna go through everything in today's video. But in all honesty, you wouldn't go wrong with any of these drones. Now, when it comes to image quality, I do think we all know where this is going. And before saying anything else, the winner here is the Mini 4 Pro because it is a better drone. End of story. It is the best drone, which also means it has the highest price. But I've recently made a few videos where I've talked about image quality versus user experience and pixel peeping, especially when it comes to the DJI Neo and the action cameras that we have. So I do want to touch on this topic in this video as well, because it's not said that just because you have an amazing drone with some amazing image quality, your videos is going to blow up and you're going to make the best content ever or capture your best family moments. It's the story that matters, not the drone. But let's start with some facts here. Both the Mini 4 Pro and the DJI Flip has a huge advantage over the Neo in terms of image quality, and both can capture 4K videos up to 100 FPS in D-Log M 10-bit, which gives you more dynamic range and also the option to color grade your footage in post, adding your own unique look to it. And also, if you're looking for the best possible LUT collection for your DJI products, make sure to check out my Signature LUTs, which has been developed over many years now to enhance the overall image quality of these drones. And I also have a special pack for the DJI and Neo, which really make these videos look better in a unique way. So make sure to check them out down in the description below. Now, going back to the specs here, the Neo has a smaller half-inch sensor compared to the 1/1.3-inch CMOS sensor on the Flip and the Mini 4 Pro, and it also has a slower aperture of f2.8 compared to the f1.7 on the Flip and the Mini 4 Pro. And also, it only comes with one color profile, which is normal, whilst on these other two guys we have a D-Log M 10-bit, and on the Mini 4 Pro we also have HLG. So you have a little bit more options with the Mini 4 Pro, and that's also why it costs a little bit more. So what we're gonna do is to compare this against the DJI Neo. We're gonna do follow. This is gonna be shot in the vertical aspect, so 2.7K at 30 FPS on this one, 1080p at 30 FPS on the DJI Neo, and we're also gonna throw in the Mini 4 Pro there, which can shoot vertical videos up to 4K 100 FPS, but to make it fair, we're gonna go with 4K 30 FPS on that one as well. So just hold the button on the side.
Far, follow, 3, 2, 1.
And it's now filming. Even though this is fairly large compared to, I would say, all the mini drones when it's actually unflipped, but you can also flip this, which means that it is a little bit more convenient to carry around, and it does fit in my pocket, which is a bonus when it comes to the DJI Flip, even though it's fairly large compared to the DJI Neo. And now we're going to test the DJI Neo here. We're going to walk the same path here.
1.
Now, before we move over to the Mini 4 Pro's Active Track 360, let's do a quick direction track with the DJI Neo and the DJI Flip.
R. Direction track. 3, 2, 1.
If you want the direction track to stop, you basically just stand still for 3 seconds and the drone will come towards you. No, it couldn't be easier than this. So this is the difference between the DJI Flip and the Neo, that it doesn't take as long to set up as something like the Mini 4 Pro. It's a lot more convenient to use the DJI Flip and the DJI Neo if you're on the go and if you want to capture a super fast quick shot or a tracking shot or even direction track, or fly manually with your smartphone. Another advantage with the Flip and the DJI Neo is that it doesn't require a controller, which means that with the Mini 4 Pro now I have to walk around with the RC2 controller, which is required in order to take off and fly with the Mini 4 Pro. We have set this to auto as well, same as the other two, and we're gonna track this in 4K 30 FPS. Same as the DJI Flip and the Neo, this can also do that direction track or track you from the front. So let's see how that does compared to the Flip and the DJI Neo. Basically, to find out which has the smoothest possible tracking. When it comes to image quality, the Mini 4 Pro is of course gonna win 10 out of 10 times, and then the DJI Flip is gonna come second, and then DJI Neo last. But let's see how this tracks, which is just need to get this. Whoop. One of the things which is really annoying at times is that when you're going to change the direction of where you want the drone to track from, for some reason take the longest route to that position, even though it's just like 50 centimeters to the right or the left, it wants to do the entire 360 spin before it actually gets to that position. It is annoying. Let's see if this can track me just from the front now. So at the end, the image quality coming from the DJI and Neo is not going to be even close to these other guys. However, the videos coming from the Neo doesn't look horrible, and I've been posting a lot of reels on Instagram and TikTok lately, and I honestly think the footage coming from the Neo looks amazing for what it is. So I'll leave the handles down in the description if you want to check those videos in particular to see how it looks on social media. However, in low light, the Neo suffers a lot and there's a lot of noise. So if you plan on shooting a lot of low light videos with your drone, the Neo is not the drone you should buy. The Mini 4 Pro has a dedicated low light video mode, which looks outstanding, and you can basically use this straight out of the box without having to tweak anything. And for the price, even though it's on the higher end of $1,000 for the Fly More combo, you get the best of the best and something that will last you for years, and not to mention the most silent drone there is out of these three drones here. But when it comes to low light, for me personally, I've never really been a huge fan of low light videos because because this feature or the ability to capture amazing low light videos has always required a bigger drone at a bigger price, which also makes a bigger sound compared to the Mini 4 Pro. So basically, when I first saw the low light feature on the Mini 4 Pro, it was a no-brainer, and I used this a lot on our trip to capture some night shots in Hawaii, sunsets, sunrises, and I think all of these clips turned out amazing. So basically, the Mini 4 Pro helped me enjoy more low light shooting, I would say. It's basically the same as my previous video, which was on the Ace Pro 2. If you haven't seen that, make sure to check that out as well. But in that video, I talked about low light and why the Ace Pro 2 is my go-to for low light. So it's basically the same for the Mini 4 Pro as well, but the Flip is not that far away. So let's talk about that. So the Flip doesn't really have this dedicated low light mode, but it still puts out some amazing videos in low light thanks to the D-Log M 10-bit color profile and the dual native ISO, which sits at 100 and 400 ISO. So this will basically give you more dynamic range and the option to color grade and correct your footage later. So even if this is not meant for flying in low light, and the drone will also give you a prompt message saying make sure to fly in a properly textured lit environment, something like that, it's still able to capture some outstanding low light videos. So for low light, whether this is videos or photos, the DJI Flip or the Mini 4 Pro would be the better buy. However, the Mini 4 Pro does have the advantage because it has a dedicated low light mode, so you don't have to go in and color correct and grade the footage later, because you will have to use the D-Log M 10-bit on the Flip in order to get the best possible low light image. Talking about photos, here's a few low light photos captured with the 48 megapixels on the Mini 4 Pro and the DJI Flip. Not the same location, but you still get an idea of what they look like. Which one do you think looks better? Is it the Flip or is it the Mini 4 Pro? Let me know in the comments below. As for DJI Neo, which has a smaller sensor and a slower aperture, the low light photos is not something to go by, as the drone is simply not made for low light at all. Not for videos and not for photos. And when it comes to taking photos as well, this has 12 megapixels, so it's not going to be on the same level as these other guys. But if you just need some quick photos from your trip and you also want to do these easy quick shots, well, the DJI Neo is still a good option. But like I said, both the Mini 4 Pro and the Flip here can capture photos in 48 megapixels, and that's also in JPEG and RAW, as well as panorama photos. But mainly, if you're looking for a drone that can take decent photos as well as videos, then the Flip or the Mini 4 Pro might be the better buy over the DJI Neo. Now, let's talk about the features and what the difference is when it comes to features and how you can fully utilize each of these drones. So the Mini 4 Pro is the most feature-packed sub 250 gram drone, with every single feature you could possibly imagine that you would ever need now and in the future. And it has features like waypoints, active track 360, cruise control, quick shots, master shots, a night mode, spotlight, point of interest, panorama, D-Log M 10-bit, HLG, and a normal color profile, and more. There's so much packed into this drone that you might have a hard time deciding between which features to use at different times. And of course, all of these videos can also be captured in horizontal and true vertical aspect, because the camera can physically rotate into a vertical position. So you will be able to get true vertical 4K videos up to 100 FPS, which is something that none of these other drones can offer. But the Flip doesn't fall short either. It has some of the same features like direction track, where the drone is tracking you from the front, also follow mode, where it follows you from the back, and we also have panorama photos, 48 megapixel photos, quick shots, master shots. We also have two color profiles, so normal and D-Log M 10-bit, and you can fly this in 4 different ways. So either with the RC2 controller or the RCN3 remote, where you have to connect your phone. You can also use this without a controller, which adds a huge advantage over the Mini 4 Pro if you want something which is quick and easy. Just the same as the DJI Neo here. Now, the Neo has limited features, which also reflects back to the cheaper price of $199 US, but it has everything you need to capture amazing travel content. We have 8 quick shots in total, so we have follow, direction track, helix, circle, rocket, drone, and spotlight, and also boomerang. And you can also fly this without a remote, just like the DJI Flip here. But with the Neo, you can also fly FPV, which puts this in its own little category by itself. So unlike the other DJI drones here, this is the only one that can fly like a normal, regular, standard drone or without a controller at all, just by using voice commands or using the built-in flight modes. And also FPV with the goggles 3, the goggles N3, and the RC Motion 3 or the FPV controller. So it might not be the best when it comes to image quality or all the features, but what it do have is the versatility in terms of what you can do, which overall might give you a better experience because it offers more than just a regular flight. So if you want to fly with your smartphone, you can do that. Maybe you want to fly a bit further away, you just connect it to the RC2 controller, and if you like, let's say at the end you want to fly some FPV, you don't have to buy a separate FPV drone in order to fly some FPV, because the DJI Neo can also do that. So where the Neo falls short on image quality, perhaps some features and battery life, even though the batteries are pretty cheap, so it's easy to get some extra, it comes back strong by having the easiest and most versatile experience for beginners. Even though the Flip works in the exact same way as the Neo, the smaller form factor and weight makes the Neo the easiest drone to carry around, unless you're flying FPV, of course, which will require an additional controller and the goggles. Now, when it comes to user experience flying these drones here, and basically any type of drones, I can only speak for myself, but I have flown quite a lot of drones over the past years, and I think the best drone experience I've had ever is with the Mini 4 Pro, because it makes things easier for me as a content creator, especially with automated flight modes like waypoints, cruise control. Even though I have cruise control on both of these drones as well, the Flip and the Neo, there's just something about waypoints in particular which allows me to set up a mission, set the speed between each point, and then just press start and go about my hike, and I know that the Mini 4 Pro will capture everything, and it will capture everything just like I want it to. And this allows me to capture better and more dynamic shots from any angle, distance or height. However, I do see myself going more towards the Mini 4 Pro when it comes to professional use and not necessarily vacations and holidays and trips with my family, especially after getting the Neo, which has been a game changer because it's so easy to use and I don't have to spend the extra minutes waiting for the connection between the Mini 4 Pro and the RC2 controller. And I also noticed that when we were in Hawaii, I had the Mini 4 Pro, the Mini 3 Pro and the Neo with me, and also the Avata 2 with me, and the only drone I used was the Neo because it was much easier to set up and get the shot. And I don't care about the image quality because that was a family vacation, so capturing the moments with my son, with my wife, just traveling around the island, I had such a great time with the Neo, which would have taken a lot longer with the Mini 4 Pro because I have to set it up for every single location I go to. Whilst on the Neo, I could just press a button, like 15 seconds, done. Now, I've been testing the Flip for some time now, and I must say I'm honestly impressed, real impressed with the capabilities of the Flip here, and the fact that we have 10-bit D-Log M now just makes everything better, especially for me that loves to color correct and make the footage look even better than the normal color profile. But there's still some things you need to be aware of when it comes to these drones, especially if you're a brand new pilot and you're looking to buy your first drone. Now, if you use both the Neo and the Flip without the controller, you're also limited to auto settings. So that means auto ISO, auto shutter speed, and auto white balance, which doesn't really matter that much in most scenarios, but something you might experience that the white balance is far off in one location and suddenly you turn around and the white balance is different. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. So it's not a huge problem, but it's definitely something that you need to be aware of, that you can't expect the best possible image quality when you're using a smartphone with these drones, and especially that comes to using quick shots. Now, where the Neo lacks obstacle avoidance sensors, it only has position sensors on the bottom. Both the Mini 4 Pro and the Flip has some sort of avoidance system. So the Mini 4 Pro has a full 360-degree obstacle avoidance system, which will protect the drone in any environment basically, and this is also good and bad. And the Flip has a front-facing 3D infrared sensing system. However, when you're using the Flip without a controller and you use tracking modes like follow, I would strongly recommend that you turn this off, as it will do more harm than good. Even though it's awesome to see a sensing system in a drone like this, which is fantastic on its own, the only option are off or brake. So there's no bypass option as of now. So basically when you're tracking yourself, if the drone gets too close to an obstacle or decides that, hey, there's something in the way, it will basically stop and hover and basically ruin the shot. And in worst case, if this happens at a greater altitude, you might have to pull out your phone again, connect it to the Flip, and then manually fly the drone to a different location or pull it down to land. So at this time, I would recommend setting the tracking height of the follow mode to flat if you're doing a forest hike, for example, or even low if the terrain is even. But hopefully this is something that DJI can address and fix in the future by adding a bypass option with a future firmware update. Also, after using the Mini 4 Pro for more than a year now, 14 months, I think there is no major improvement to Active Track 360, and most of the times it struggles to keep a consistent flight pattern. This is something I've talked about many times, and it's still a problem, it's still an issue, especially when you do forest hikes or tracking in like closed areas. So when you use this in an open field, it's going to be much better than it was when it was released, but I still would prefer to have a drone that tracks me seamlessly when I'm on a forest hike. And at the moment, I think there's only two drones that does this really good, which is the Flip and the Neo. When it comes to wind resistance, both the Mini 4 Pro and the Flip has a level 5 wind resistance of up to 10.7 meters a second, whilst the Neo has a level 4 resistance up to 8 meters a second. However, in moderate winds, I've found the Flip to struggle just as much as the Neo. So even if the Flip has a higher wind resistance, it also has these fully covered propeller guards, which adds more mass to the drone than the Neo and the Mini 4 Pro, which means that there's more to grab for the wind. And this was actually quite noticeable when flying slow, as you can see in this video, and how it goes up and down and from side to side. And honestly, it really looks like a video shot on an action camera without stabilization. Another thing is that DJI does not recommend to fly the Neo or the Flip above water or reflective surfaces. I tried this in an open field covered with snow on a bright sunny day, which is approximately the same as flying over water when it comes to the reflections and the behavior of the drone itself. And the problem here is that none of these drones seems to know the actual ground and altitude. So at first they start off good, but eventually they end up lower or higher than the actual starting point. So for both the Neo and the Flip, I actually had to connect my phone and manually land it after a few quick shots. Otherwise, I would just stand there trying to jump and get it down. And eventually, after a couple of minutes, I managed to get the Flip down. But that's what I mean when you use automated quick shots like Helix, Droney, Circle, and stuff like that. It will not recognize the ground, so it will be higher or lower, which is why a lot of people have these flyaways and why some of these drones end up in the water, because what we really want is to fly above water because it creates these amazing shots, and it's one of my favorite things to do with a drone. So for that reason, you would need an RC controller, either the RC-N2, RC-N3, or the RC2 controller to be able to fly the Flip above water, and the same thing goes for the DJI Neo. And of course, the Mini 4 Pro does not have any issues when it comes to flying at all. 100% reliable. The only thing is these sensors, which can create this uneven tracking result. So if you want a consistent tracking, which is more or less static and looks like someone is walking behind you with a gimbal and a decent camera, well, the Neo and the Flip will be the better buy. So these are the main cons with these drones. Nothing that would prevent me from buying either of them. It's just good to be aware of them and not expect everything to be flawless right out of the box once you get your first drone. But with that said, if you're ever planning on learning FPV, the Neo would probably be the best drone to start with, because you can buy the FPV bundle, which comes with the RC Motion 3, the goggles N3, the Neo itself, and that means you can fly this as an FPV drone and if you don't want to fly as an FPV drone, you still have this self-tracking options with no controller at all, or you can fly manually with your smartphone. So this is really versatile. You know, you're gonna have a really good time with the Neo, and that's probably what I would recommend getting, because it's a much more versatile drone. But if you don't care about FPV at all and you're just looking for a drone for social media and you don't have any side jobs which requires pixel peeping and all of that, I would still go for the DJI Flip. But if you want the automated flight modes like waypoints, which will overall make your life much easier when you're out traveling, because you can set up a flight mission and the drone will execute that mission for you, so you don't have to think about anything, which also means you can put down the controller so it looks like someone else is flying the drone and capturing you and your party doing a hike or anything like that. But I also recommend checking out my in-depth travel videos of these drones, which dives a little bit deeper into all aspects and also more pros and cons, which might help you make the right buying decision. All the links will be down below as well, so make sure to check those out. And if you haven't watched my in-depth review of the DJI Flip yet, make sure to check it out here on the screen, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.